Good morning. It is so great to see you. It was a day to stand, so I grabbed Reverend Lynn's old stand from the chancel, and I am in my office at UUCR, and it feels so good to be together this morning. Hi, everyone. Look at all your smiling faces. It's so great to see you. What would it feel like to be Dr. King for a day? What would it be to embody the dream of Dr. King in our time? To move into the world with that unending wisdom, that prophetic voice, that power to inspire with such courageous love. Dr. King for a day. How would you use that deep well of faith to move our people, to build that beloved community? So we heard this a few days ago as it was coming together. It was just incredible. So I decided to attend a Shabbat service Friday night hosted by the Sixth and I Synagogue in Washington, D.C. They hosted a Shabbat called the MLK Experience, alongside with their very close kin congregation, the Turner AME Church in Washington, D.C. And they sang Olam Chesed Yibane to start, which we have used in our worship many, many times. We must build this world for love, from love. We must build this world from love. And I knew I was in the right place as the words came, Olam Chesed Yibane. And Rabbi Shira Stutman began her remarks for Shabbat talking about the intersection of religion and politics as a symbiotic relationship where religion informs politics and vice versa, where both religion and politics are premised in the same ideas and ideals. The role of good politics and good government is to care for our most vulnerable and to lead towards the good of us all. The role of good religion is the same, with mercy, compassion, and kindness as our guides. This symbiotic relationship between religion and politics calls to mind our eighth principle, where as Unitarian Universalists we covenant to affirm and promote that journey towards spiritual wholeness, to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. As we consider the call of living as King for today, or as Nadia said, as King every day, this journey towards spiritual wholeness is both a political charge and an affirmation of our faith and our values. That symbiosis, I just love that symbiosis of how we are called to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community and dismantle racism and other oppressions within ourselves and our institutions again and again. And that, my beloved people, requires one thing. The cornerstone of both religion and politics is hope. Because both, the charge of good religion and good politics is to heal a broken world. As Dr. King said, out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. This is a time. This is a time to turn towards hope. As a beacon at the top of the mountain, they remind us of our greatest aspirations and intentions for our world. And hope is not an idyllic Pollyanna yearning. Hope is the fire that gives meaning to our work. Hope is the spark that points the way and sustains our ability to live our values, to live as if we were Dr. King for today and all days. Hope is grounded and given bones and given shape in good politics by the oaths we take, and in religion by our covenant and our principles. As a veteran and as a service member, when I was on active duty, putting on my boots and uniform each and every day, UCMJ, the Universe Code of Military Justice, I was bound to UCMJ and bound by my oath of office. Service members are to be apolitical while in uniform and never use our military service or affiliation for political gain or recognition. Since the rise of violent white nationalism, I've noticed many of my military friends and colleagues who are still on active duty, especially in the days following the vile insurrection in Washington, D.C., and the treasonous acts on the Capitol last week. They've posted and reposted their oath of office, the same oath I took when I commissioned as a military chaplain in 2003. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me, God. A congregant said to me as they watched the violence unfold across Washington, D.C. last week, and the world watched as the sitting president remained steadfast and silent, she thought, didn't he take an oath? Doesn't he remember his oath? What if our sitting president fought like King for a day? Dr. King's prophetic charge to us years ago, we must come to see that the world, the end we seek, is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. So the oath, our oath of office, is similar to how we are bound together as a people of faith through our covenants. We spoke it again this morning. Love. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We are also bound, and yes, I keep on using that word bound, because the Latin root word of the word religion is religio, which means to bind, which is also the root word of the name Rebekah. It is one who is bound. We are bound together through our covenants and our principles, to include our eighth principle. But our principles are not just words that we recite. They are a beacon of hope and a charge of this day to look to the mountaintop that is to guide our choices, our active choices. Principles mean nothing without reflecting and deep engagement of how we choose to live, where we invest our time, our talent, our resources, how we call people in and hold them accountable, how we radiate and shine our love, how we show up in the world. And right now, that feels like a really tall order in some ways, and in some ways not. We are called to be and to do our part as often as we can, for as long as we can, and then we pause. We pause because the work is hard and we need to refresh and rededicate our efforts. Living our principles by definition means at times we may feel lost and overwhelmed and hopeless in our heartbreak. And that's okay, because we don't have to live there in that hopeless place. We can't live there. A colleague shared a powerful chart of the cycle of inaction, and I'm going to ask them to show that in a screen share in just a moment, but not quite yet. The cycle of inaction goes like this. First, a horrific injustice, then shock and confusion, then emotional response, then performative allyship, then guilt and fatigue, then inaction and passivity, and then apathy. And the cycle repeats itself. Horrific injustice, shock and confusion, emotional response, performative allyship, guilt and fatigue, inaction and passivity, apathy, which allows the cycle to repeat. Now you can screen share. Thank you. The cycle of action, which hopefully you can see that, scratched in around the steps of inaction, include, so when horrific injustice takes place, we won't be overtaken by shock and confusion, as if the fruit of systemic injustice is surprising. Instead, our emotional response will be marked by empathy and compassion, leading to reflection of our performative allyship in exchange for the real vigorous work. And should guilt and fatigue try to settle in, we'll recenter the needs of those yearning for liberation, remembering that inaction and passivity are detrimental to justice, and that apathy is the antithesis of unconditional love. So when horrific injustice takes place, we won't be overtaken by shock and confusion, as if the fruits of systemic oppression is surprising, and the cycle continues. Thank you. Politics and religion are in a symbiotic relationship, meaning as a people of faith and conscience, we have a role in shaping the future of our society, our world. We vote our principles. We call leaders forth to lead us on towards the good. We are the force that reminds our leaders of our covenants, that reminds our leaders of their oath, of our principles. And as Nadia reminded us in the words of Dr. King, maybe you'll sing that song all week long. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But do whatever you have to do to keep moving forward. And moving forward for us means feeding the good and starving the bad. That's my mantra often. We're going to feed the good and starve the bad. And I ask you for the good of your hearts and souls. Sometimes you don't have to convince the world, not when it comes at the cost of your hope, but centering the needs of those yearning for liberation, to include ourselves, the voices of BIPOC leaders, the voices of our queer leaders, the voices of our trans leaders, our poor leaders, by centering the voices of the marginalized. That is how real change happens, because systemic Radical change starts at the margins. We keep moving forward. So people always ask me, beloveds in the congregation or colleagues or people I meet, so what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? There are three things as a people of faith engaged in that symbiotic relationship between faith and politics can do right now. I'm going to ask them to put a link in the chat as I read each one. Go read up on the Poor People's Campaign, a legacy of Dr. King in our time, on the 14 policy priorities to heal the nation, a moral and economic agenda for the first 100 days of the Biden-Harris administration. 2, join Valerie Carr and the Revolutionary Love Project's The People's Inauguration, which calls us to the People's Oath, to be spoken alongside with the incoming administration on Inauguration Day. I do solemnly vow that I will faithfully execute my role in healing, reimagining, and rebuilding our country, and will, to the best of my ability, persevere, protect, and defend dignity, justice, and joy for myself and for all around me, and that I will do so with love. That is the People's Oath as a part of the People's Inauguration. And third, most importantly, Dr. King MLK Sunday always marks the beginning of our 30 Days of Love annual UU Faith-wide campaign. 30 Days of Love begins this week with readings and videos and activities for the entire family, for kids, for youth, for multi-generational, for adults. There are programs for us all. The 30 Days of Love includes 4 weeks with different themes, matching the themes that we found in the Commission on Institutional Change, their report to transform our faith towards a more just and beloved community. And this week, very fitting, the charge is to live our values in the world. So come, let us work together towards the 30 Days of Love beginning this week and living our values in the world. So that's 3 things that we can do. And many of you have asked me in our one-on-one conversations, how does it feel to be in this new role as your settled and called minister? Each time I've responded along the lines of, it's a lot. I didn't think that my first 5, 6, 7 months would be virtual worship and ministry in the middle of a pandemic. It's a huge job and a huge responsibility. And beloveds, I am on fire. I am on fire and humbly and deeply grateful for the opportunity to serve such a vibrant, courageous, and loving congregation. You are the reason I have hope. Look, there are 157 connections on the line this morning. That's probably over 200 people with lots of folks with more than one. Yeah, you can scroll through. I see some folks hitting the screen. Scroll through. Look at this amazing congregation of people. Even you newcomers and visitors, you are part of us. Beloveds, you are the reason I have hope. You are my companions up to the mountaintop. You are the air in my lungs. You are the blood in my heart. Your thirst for justice and struggling with how we live our principles, especially our 8th principle, are not just words. Are not just words, but our reason to keep moving forward. And so in closing, I'll share a portion of the reading for this week from the 30 Days of Love campaign, written by Alandria Williams, a significant and prophetic and prominent UU leader who died not too long ago, far, far too soon. Alandria writes this: "We are part of the connective tissue that holds the legacy and the future of our faith. We are the children of freedom fighters, visionaries, and radical liberal theologians. We are the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the McCarthy era and the civil rights, the women's and queer liberation movements. We are the survivors and the beneficiaries of youth-led and youth-focused beliefs and programming that encouraged us to be change makers, boundary pushers, and institutionalists all at the same time. We are and will be the ministers, the religious educators, the congregational presidents and organizers, and social change leaders that our faith needs us to be. We wear our faith as tattoos on our bodies, some of us literally, as tattoos on our bodies and in our hearts as testaments to the blood, tears, dreams, and inspirations of our community, ancestors, and elders. We are community. Amen, and blessed be.